Single black mom takes her drunk boss home after the company party. When he wakes up, did you really think I wouldn't find out? Mr. Alaric Vance's cold voice cut through the silence of the office as he held his cell phone with a compromising photo on the screen. A woman like you in my house took advantage of me when I was vulnerable. 38-year-old Nia Thompson remained seated calmly at the executive desk, her eyes fixed on him without showing any surprise. A single mother of a 10-year-old son, she had been working as a senior marketing manager at Global Tech Innovations for 7 years. Always impeccable in her campaigns and respectful to everyone, she never imagined that a gesture of kindness would turn into an accusation that could destroy her life. If you've ever felt overlooked or misunderstood, this story is for you. Nia Thompson, a strong, hard-working single mother, finds herself caught in a web of lies and betrayal, but she's not backing down. Watch as she takes on the system and exposes a powerful executive's darkest secrets. If you're ready for a story of resilience, justice, and the fight for what's right, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life moments of triumph. Mr. Vance, you were extremely drunk last night. I just took you home safely, as any decent person would do. Alaric laughed dismissively, his blue eyes flashing with calculated coldness. Oh, how convenient. The helpful employee offers to drive his drunk boss home. And then, well, we all know what women like you do when you think no one is watching. The insinuation was clear and poisonous. Nia felt her blood boil, but she kept her composure. She had noticed small signs of prejudice from Alaric over the years. Subtle comments about how lucky she was to work at such a prestigious firm, condescending looks when she spoke in meetings. The way he always double-checked her work, while approving mediocre reports from white male colleagues without question. I'm sure there's a misunderstanding here, Nia said, her voice controlled, masking the storm inside. There's no misunderstanding. You invaded my privacy, embarrassed me, and now you're going to pay for it. Alaric leaned forward. I'm considering reporting this as sexual harassment. It's your word against mine, Nia. Who do you think they'll believe? The silence hung in the air like a tangible threat. Nia watched the face of the man who controlled her professional destiny, noticing how he savored every word, every moment of power over her. He had no idea that she had recorded every second of the previous night, from the moment she found him crying in the company bathroom to when she dropped him off at home, taking care to document every respectful gesture. What if I told you I have proof that nothing inappropriate happened? Nia asked softly. Alaric laughed. Proof? What kind of proof could a woman in your position have against someone like me? Nia just smiled, a smile that contained years of patience, strategy, and an intelligence that Alaric had completely underestimated. She knew this moment would eventually come. People like him always revealed their true nature when they felt in complete control. While Alaric continued to talk about consequences and resignations, Nia thought about her son waiting for her at home, the injustice she faced every day, and the plan she had begun to form long before this conversation. This wasn't just about her job. It was about exposing a systemic rot she had observed for years. Alaric wasted no time in spreading his version of the facts. The following Monday, Nia arrived at the office to find strange looks, muffled whispers, and a frosty atmosphere that hadn't been there the previous Friday. He had planted poisonous seeds of mistrust with surgical precision. Nia, we need to talk, said Sarah Peterson from Human Resources, appearing in her cubicle before she even turned on her computer. There has been a formal complaint against you. As she walked down the hallway, Nia noticed how her colleagues averted their gaze, as if she were carrying a contagious disease. Alaric had chosen his words carefully, never direct accusations that could be easily refuted, but insinuations serious enough to tarnish her reputation irreversibly. In the HR office, she found Alaric sitting like a king on his throne, flanked by 2 company lawyers. His smile was predatory, full of the confidence of someone who had never lost a corporate battle. Miss Thompson, Sarah began uncomfortably. Mr. Vance alleges that you behaved inappropriately when you drove him home after the company party. He has compromising photos. What photos? Nia interrupted calmly. Alaric slid his phone across the table, showing a picture of him lying in his own bed, slightly disheveled. You put me in this vulnerable position, Nia. A woman alone with a defenseless man. Nia looked at the photo with clinical interest. Interesting. And who took this picture? I did when I woke up and realized what had happened, Alaric replied quickly. Ah, Nia said, making a mental note. First, documented lie. What Alaric didn't know was that Nia had grown up in the social housing system after her parents died when she was a teenager. Years navigating complex bureaucracy and protecting her younger siblings had taught her to document everything, distrust authority, and always have an escape plan. Later, serving as a project manager in a demanding tech startup before joining global tech, she learned strategy, patience, and the importance of knowing her enemy thoroughly before attacking. Now, as a single mother to Jamal, a brilliant 10-year-old boy who was her reason for living, Nia had perfected the art of anticipating problems and protecting herself against them. Especially in corporate environments where Black women, especially those from modest backgrounds, were often the first to be undermined when something went wrong. Miss Thompson, Sarah continued, do you understand the seriousness of this situation? We're talking about a possible suspension without pay while we investigate. Sure, Nia replied. And I suppose Mr. Vance's word is considered more reliable than mine. Alaric leaned forward, his eyes sparkling with malice. Nia, you're a good employee. You always have been. But women in your situation sometimes get confused about appropriate boundaries when they're around successful men. It's understandable, really. The condescension in his voice was like a slap. Nia felt that familiar sensation, the same one she felt when social workers talked about people like her, when venture capitalists questioned her leadership abilities, when university professors expressed surprise at her high grades. My situation? Nia repeated softly. Well, you know, single mother, coming from where you come from, working here at our goodwill, sometimes the lines get blurred when there are significant differences in status. The silence in the room was deafening. Sarah looked uncomfortable, but the lawyers remained impassive. Alaric, however, was clearly relishing every word, every moment of humiliation he believed he was inflicting. Nia thought of Jamal, who that morning had asked why she looked worried. Mum, are you okay? You always say good people win in the end. She had smiled and promised that they were, that good people always find a way. Mr. Vance, Nia said finally, may I ask a question? On the night of the party, you mentioned something about your former assistant, David Reed. You said he had tried to play the victim card when he was dismissed. Alaric stiffened slightly. That's not relevant to this discussion. Oh, but I think it is, because David came to me last week. He's suing the company for unfair dismissal and age discrimination. Apparently, he has some very interesting recordings of conversations he had with you. Alaric's face lost some of its color, but he recovered quickly. David is a disgruntled employee making up stories. No one will believe him. Nia smiled again, that same smile that contained years of careful preparation. You may be right about that, Mr. Vance. After all, who would believe the word of an older man against a respected young white executive like you? The irony did not go unnoticed. Alaric realized too late that he had fallen into a verbal trap, using the exact same argument that was now being turned against him. What are you implying? Sarah asked. Nia rose calmly. I'm not implying anything. I'm just observing that it's interesting how certain people assume that their word is worth more than others based on, well, characteristics that shouldn't matter in a professional environment. As she left the room, Nia heard Alaric whisper furiously with the lawyers. He had no idea that she had spent the last 2 years meticulously documenting every questionable comment, every microaggression, every discriminatory decision he thought was too subtle to be noticed. Every condescending word he had just spoken had been recorded by the discreet app on her phone. Every expression of superiority had been captured. Every implicit admission of bias was now digitally preserved. What Alaric also didn't know was that Nia wasn't just any senior marketing manager. She had a master's degree in cybersecurity and had built a formidable network of contacts that included investigative journalists, anti-discrimination lawyers, and corporate whistleblowers who lived to expose executives like him. But above all, Alaric had made the fatal mistake of threatening not only her job, but her ability to support Jamal. And when you threaten the child of a woman who has already lost everything once and rebuilt herself from scratch, you awaken a force that cannot be contained or controlled. That afternoon, while Alaric celebrated with his lawyers what he believed to be an easy victory, Nia was at home helping Jamal with his science project. Carefully planning every move in a game he didn't even know he had lost the moment he completely underestimated the intelligence and preparedness of the woman he was trying to destroy. Alaric wasted no time consolidating his victory. On Tuesday, Nia was officially suspended without pay for inappropriate conduct under investigation. On Wednesday, he circulated a confidential memo to other executives about keeping an eye on employees who may exhibit questionable behavior. On Thursday, Nia received a formal letter from the company requesting that she no longer enter the building until further notice. What Alaric didn't know was that Nia had spent the last 3 days not wallowing but executing the first phase of a plan she had been developing for months. Her first phone call wasn't to a run-of-the-mill labor lawyer, but to Miss Olivia King, a renowned anti-discrimination attorney who had built her career destroying executives who thought they were above the law. Nia Thompson. Olivia's voice sounded interested when she identified herself. "David Reed told me about you. He said you might have valuable information about certain practices at your company." "I have more than information, Ms. King. I have evidence." During their meeting in Olivia's sleek central London office, Nia opened her laptop and showed him meticulously organized files. Detailed spreadsheets showed how Black, female, and older employees were systematically given lower performance reviews, passed over for promotions, and had their work questioned far more often than their younger, white male colleagues who performed worse. "Impressive," Olivia murmured, examining the data. "How long did it take you to compile all this?" 2.5 years since I noticed the pattern." Nia clicked on another folder. But that's not even the best part. What appeared on the screen made Olivia whistle softly. They were screenshots of private company chat conversations between executives, internal emails with disparaging comments disguised as feedback, and most devastating of all, a 30-minute audio recording from an executive meeting where Alaric and others openly discussed how to diversify without diluting the talent pool, clearly implying a bias against hiring or promoting Black staff, women, and older staff. "How did you get access to this?" Olivia asked, clearly impressed. Nia smiled for the first time in days. "Let's just say that when you've worked in cybersecurity and system administration for years, you learn a few useful things about corporate systems. And when you're consistently excluded from important meetings, you find other ways to stay informed." Meanwhile, Alaric was in his office celebrating with phone calls to other white male executives, bragging about how he had dealt with a problem employee before she became a bigger liability for the company. He had no idea that every word was being documented by the monitoring system Nia had discreetly installed months earlier. "The problem with people like her," Alaric said on the phone to Richard Vance, director of another branch, "is that they don't understand appropriate boundaries. They grow up thinking they deserve the same treatment as people who have actually built something in life." On the other end of the line, Richard laughed. "At least you took care of it before she tried to play the victim card. Those cases can drag on for years." "Exactly. That's why I acted fast. A single Black woman against a respected young white man. The courts may be more sensitive these days, but the reality is that credibility still matters." Nia listened to every word through the system she had set up. Each comment automatically transcribed and marked with a date and time. Alaric was digging his own grave and didn't even realize it. That afternoon, Olivia called with news. "Nia, I've got something interesting. The Financial Conduct Authority, FCA, is investigating discriminatory practices at large financial corporations in London. Your company is on the list of companies under preliminary scrutiny." "That means?" That means your evidence won't just help in a labor lawsuit. It could be the missing piece in a much larger federal investigation. As she talked to Olivia, Nia glanced out the window of her living room where Jamal was doing his homework at the kitchen table. He had asked why Mum was home during the week, and she had explained that she was working out some problems at work. "Will everything be okay, Mum?" He had asked with that frightening insight children sometimes have. "Yes, it will, sweetheart. Sometimes people think they can be mean to other people without consequences. But the truth always comes out in the end." Jamal had smiled and returned to his science project, confident in his mother's promise. That confidence was what fueled Nia's fierce determination. It wasn't just about her. It was about creating a world where her son would never have to accept being treated as a second-class citizen. "Olivia," Nia said, returning to her phone. "There's one more thing I need to show you." "What?" "The recording of my conversation with Alaric yesterday. His whole performance about women like me and status differences. It's all documented, including the part where he admits he planned this situation from the beginning." Olivia was silent for a moment. "Nia, do you understand what this means? It means he's not just committing discrimination. He's orchestrating a conspiracy to harm an employee based on prejudice bias. And he was stupid enough to admit it on tape." "Exactly. And that turns a routine employment case into a serious regulatory violation and potentially criminal charges." That night, while Nia was helping Jamal with his history homework on civil rights movements, he asked a question that made her stop breathing for a moment. "Mom, why do some people think they're better than others just because of their skin color or gender or age?" Nia chose her words carefully. "Sometimes, Jamal, people who have never had to fight for anything think that their easy life means they're special. They forget that we're all equal. And what do we do when we meet people like that?" Nia smiled, thinking of Alaric celebrating a victory that would soon turn into his total ruin. "We show them they're wrong, with intelligence, with evidence, and always by doing the right thing." What Alaric also didn't know was that Nia had spent years building a network of contacts that included investigative journalists, anti-discrimination activists, and even other employees of similar companies who had experienced racial, gender, and age bias. Her suspension had freed up time to activate this network in a way she could never have done while working full-time. On Friday, while Alaric was having lunch at the most expensive restaurant in London, celebrating with Richard Vance his efficient management of problematic human resources, Nia was in a video conference with representatives from the FCA and the Metropolitan Police's Economic Crime Unit, presenting evidence that would turn Alaric's life into a legal nightmare from which he would never wake up. For a moment, when Nia turned off her computer after the meeting, she allowed herself a smile of satisfaction. It wasn't a smile of revenge. It was the smile of a woman who had finally found the perfect moment to let justice prevail. A woman who had learned that patience and preparation were worth more than 1,000 angry words, and that sometimes the best response to injustice is to give the unjust enough rope to hang themselves. Monday began normally for Alaric. Premium coffee, executive meeting at 9, lunch with investors at noon. He was reviewing presentations when Sarah from HR appeared at his door with an expression Alaric had never seen before, a mixture of panic and disbelief. "Alaric, we have a problem, a very serious problem." "What now?" Did Nia hire some cheap lawyer trying to stir up trouble? Sarah closed the door and approached the desk. "The FCA and the Economic Crime Unit are in the building. They want to talk to you about systematic discriminatory practices." Alaric's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "There's a full federal and regulatory investigation underway. Apparently, someone has provided extensive evidence of racial, gender, and age discrimination at the company. Recorded conversations, internal emails, manipulated HR data." Sarah paused, watching the color drain from Alaric's face. "Your name is at the center of it all." At that moment, the door opened, and 2 financial investigators and a detective entered, followed by the company's CEO, Mr. Harrison, who looked like he had aged 10 years since the previous morning. "Mr. Vance," said the lead investigator, showing him her badge. "I'm Investigator Roberts from the FCA. We'd like to ask you some questions about your management practices." Alaric tried to maintain his composure, but his hands were shaking slightly. "Of course, but I don't understand why that would be necessary." Starting with this conversation, the investigator played an audio recording on his tablet. Alaric's voice echoed clearly through the room. "The problem with people like her is that they don't understand appropriate boundaries. They grow up thinking they deserve the same treatment as people who have actually built something in life." Alaric's face drained of color. That was taken out of context. I was talking about... And this one, another audio clip began to play. A single black woman against a respected young white man. The courts may be more sensitive these days, but the reality is that credibility still matters. Mr. Harrison stood up abruptly. "Alaric, for God's sake, tell me you didn't say that." But the worst was yet to come. The investigator slid a stack of documents across the table. "These are transcripts of your phone conversations from the last 6 months. All legally obtained through a court order based on a detailed complaint of systematic discrimination." Alaric leafed through the papers with growing horror. Every prejudiced comment, every discriminatory decision, every conversation where he revealed his true biases was there, documented with date, time, and context. Who provided this? "Miss Nia Thompson, along with evidence that you orchestrated a false accusation against her based solely on racial, gender, and age prejudice." The investigator showed him more documents, including security system records showing that you yourself took that compromising photo at your home 3 hours after Nia left you safely. The revelation hit Alaric like a bolt of lightning. Nia had documented everything, every move, every conversation, every moment of the previous night. The security cameras in his own building clearly showed the timestamp of the photos he had used as evidence. In addition, the investigator continued, "We have records that you illegally accessed the HR system to alter the performance reviews of Black, female, and older employees, lowering their scores to justify denying them promotions and even facilitating their dismissal." Mr. Harrison stood up, his voice shaking with anger. "Alaric, you've compromised the entire company. Our regulatory compliance, our government contracts, our reputation. You've ruined everything." "I can explain." "There is no explanation." The CEO turned to the investigators. "He's fired, effective immediately. The company will cooperate fully with the investigation."